Welcome back, everyone, to Unchained Hope and Healing from Addiction, night number 2. So glad that you are here on this journey with us during this series. Man, last night was so blessed, so great to learn more about the series and what we can expect from this series. And you know, every night we are going to ask for you to register to the number that's on your screen. It's important to register. All you have to do is text the word Unchained to that number on your screen. And let me just tell you, when you text the word Unchained to the number on your screen, you'll be prompted to fill out some information. But I want to calm your fears that we will not share your information, will not give it to anyone else. The only thing that you'll receive from us is a text to a reminder about the series that is happening and also the topic of the series for that night. And also, there's another reason why we want everyone to register, to text the word Unchained to the number on your screen, is because once you do, you enter into a drawing of Richie Halverson's book, The Darkness Will Not Overcome. I've read it myself. It's a wonderful book, a great resource to have in your library. And so if you've registered already, if you've already texted the word Unchained, you don't need to do it again. But if not, if you didn't do it last night, or if you're new tonight, please just text the word Unchained to the number on your screen and you'll enter into the drawing for his book. Also, something that was wonderful last night is we asked everyone to let us know where they're watching this series from. We had a few people let us know. And again, we want to do that tonight. Let us know where you are watching Unchained Hope and Healing from Addiction from. Miami, Florida, Detroit, Michigan, Omak, Washington. Maybe you're in Hickory, North Carolina. Maybe you're right here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Let us know where you're watching it from. And also, one thing that we asked last night is as you let us know if you're watching it with your small group, with your family, whomever it may be. Let us know. Say, hey, I'm watching it in Hickory, North Carolina, and I'm watching it with my small group. Or I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I'm watching this with some friends of mine with a small group. Just let us know. And after you do that, one of the things that we would like for you to do is hit the like button and hit share. Share this content. Because let me tell you this, friends, all of us fight addiction. All of us are in this battle. And so we want you to share this content that others may be blessed, may find joy and peace being unchained so they can live their best life. Tonight, though, we have a special treat. We're going to hear Richie Halverson's story. We're going to hear his story. And then we're going to hear, right after that, the presentation. And he's going to let us know our first breakthrough of being unchained. Of being unchained. Our first breakthrough. And as you are watching listening to his story and watching the presentation, if questions or comments come in your mind, write them there in the comment below. Let us know what your questions are, just like we did last night. And also, just to let you know, if you want to ask a question that may be confidential and you want to remain anonymous, you could do that by texting your question to the number on your screen. So friends, tonight we're going to hear Richie Halverson's story. We're going to hear the presentation, our first breakthrough for tonight. And then we'll come back and we'll regroup and we'll have the book giveaway. So here now is Richie Halverson with his story and then the presentation.
So it's no looking back for me. It's cool to be in this same spot. Last time I was here, man, I was tore up from the floor up, completely chained to every addiction you can imagine. And it's cool to come back here to be unchained today. Hey, my name is Richie Halverson. I'm pastor speaker, but my real passion is to help people overcome addiction and find a new way of life. It's kind of crazy, but the last time that I was here in this spot, I was jobless. I had just been kicked out of the halfway house where I was living because I had stolen from the halfway house manager because I was in active addiction using. My wife couldn't let me home. She wanted to let me home, but she couldn't let me home because she couldn't trust me there either. No one was safe. You know, that's the problem with addiction, is it infects and affects everybody in the family. It hurts everybody. It affects everybody's peace of mind and their ability to enjoy life. And so I was literally at my bitter end, that bottom you hear them talk about in addiction. I was there. I was living out of my car just down at the bottom of this hill. And I remember the night before I went to treatment for the last time, I came up here. And I remember it was nighttime. It was just absolutely clear, crystal. I could see Nashville just clearly from here. I had come here so many times in my active addiction. I basically came to this threshold where I made the decision, okay, either I'm gonna die or I'm gonna give this thing one more try. Images of my children kept going through my head, images of my wife and my family, images of the person that I used to be. And that's the problem with addiction. We become someone else. I wasn't the same person that I was before. It completely changed me inside and out. We live to use and we use to live. Addiction had reduced me to this point of just near survival. I didn't care about nutrition and eating. I was 50 pounds underweight, begging for money, doing the very things that I never would have thought in a million years that I would be doing. That's what addiction brought me to that place. And so on that night, I was here. It was actually Christmas Eve that I came up here. I spent that Christmas Eve alone. I remember I started talking to God again for the first time. At this point in my life, I didn't even really know if I believed in God. I had grown up in a Christian home. My father was a pastor. I grew up in a loving family. You know, addicts don't just come from broken homes or bad areas or bad neighborhoods. Addiction comes from everywhere. It affects everybody. Getting to this point where I came up here, it was the Christmas Eve, and it really just hit home where my addiction had brought me, what it had stolen from me, all the things that were missing in my life, joy, peace of mind. You know, that's what's crazy is I went to the drugs for joy and peace of mind, but that's the irony of addiction. It steals the things that you went to it for in the beginning. And now I didn't have any freedom. I didn't have any joy. I didn't have any peace. I was completely broken. And so sitting here, I started talking to God and started saying, you know what, if you are there, I need your help. I'm completely fed up with this way of life. I can't do this anymore. I'm hurting from the inside out and I need help. And so I came up here and had a conversation with God for the first time in a long time. I didn't even know if at this point God was even there or if there really was a God. And so I started praying up here on Lover Circle. Started talking to God for the first time in a very long time. Said, man, if you're there, I need help. I can't do this. I completely felt worthless and hopeless and helpless. But something spoke to my heart and told me, don't give up. Don't give up yet. In recovery, we have a saying, don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle. And so I was at this point and I heard that, don't give up. And I made the decision that evening right here in this spot looking over the city to go to treatment one last time. And that's what I did. The very next morning, My parents sent me tickets. I got on a plane and I went to treatment. I grew up in a pretty religious home and had a pretty good family upbringing, and parents who loved me, and two sisters that were never getting into trouble. And then I came along, and in high school, I started getting in with kind of the wrong group of people that were kind of going in the wrong direction. And my story is pretty much that generic story. In the beginning, using was fun. It was the party. But then it got bad, and it got to where I was using every day, all the time. Opioids just almost devastated my life. And I couldn't go to enough doctors to get the amount of prescriptions and drugs that I needed. And so I started calling in my own prescriptions, impersonating a doctor and calling them in. And I got away with it for a long time, but you may get away with it for a while, but eventually you're gonna get caught. And eventually I did. I would impersonate the doctor and call in those prescriptions. And one time I was at a pharmacy not far from here and had called in a prescription, and I'm walking in the store to get it, go to the pharmacy, they're on to me. I know they're on to me. I get ready to leave, and as I'm coming out of the store, about 5 squad cars pull up in front of the store, and they arrest me there on the spot. Now you would have thought that was enough to kind of wake me up from this, but the reality is it takes more than that. It took me getting arrested about 4 or 5 more times. It took 4 or 5 more felonies. It took 4 more times in jail before I was even at that breaking point. Called my parents, was expecting them to bail me out of jail, but instead of them bailing me out, I got a little note the guard gave me from my mom, and she said, "Richie, we're not bailing you out anymore. We're done. And we love you. We're praying for you, but we're not doing this anymore." And that was the moment when I started realizing I had to make a change. That was when reality started hitting in. That was the first step towards me hitting my bottom. So don't enable people. Love them from a distance. Give them that tough love, all right? But don't enable them. In recovery, we call it, you can love your family to death. We have seen addicts die because their family just could not get out of their way. They kept throwing money and enabling bad behavior. Don't do that. Have boundaries, but always be there so that when they're ready to get help, you're ready there to help them from a distance. You're not going to do it for them, but you're going to help them. In the Nashville City Courthouse, that I was facing 4 pending felony charges for prescription fraud. I had 30 days clean, just got done with treatment, had my first court hearing clean, and showed up. I had missed my court while I was in treatment, so there was a warrant for my arrest for failure to appear. They immediately arrested me, took me into custody, and I thought I was going to be going away for a very long time. But by this time in my life, I had surrendered to a power greater than myself, and I was willing and ready to deal with the wreckage of my past. And I was ready for healing. I was ready for restitution. I was ready to deal with the things that I had done and face up to it. It felt so much better going into court clean than using. And so when I went before the judge, they had me drug test. I was clean. I had just finished treatment. That was good. And unbelievably, that day, I was able to leave. That the conclusion, if I remain clean, I don't get trouble again, they were going to expunge all 4 of these felony charges off my record. And so, man, I had been told multiple times that I was going to have to do some serious time. But God had other plans. And so, man, I left that day from the courthouse, and the air smelled a little sweeter. The sun man, it shined a little brighter. And I still remember the way it felt to that day of one of the benefits of living a life clean and in the process of recovery. And so I did exactly that, man. I did everything that they told me to do. If they had told me to stand on my head, I would have stand on my head because I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And so I started going to meetings. I started working the steps. I got a sponsor. I got someone who knew how to live clean. I didn't know how to live clean. I knew how to get high. I knew how to con and manipulate and steal, but I didn't know how to live successfully clean. And so I got a sponsor who did, and I started listening to him. They told me to take the cotton out of my ears and shove it in my mouth, to do more listening than talking. And that's what I started doing. And day by day, each day, I started living a cleaner, freer, happier life. My marriage was holding on by a thread. But my wife, she let me come back home. We reconciled our relationship. It took time. Trust that was damaged over years doesn't heal overnight. So it took time for me to heal that relationship. And you know what? Sometimes a lot of people in recovery, their marriage doesn't heal. Unfortunately, lots of times the relationship doesn't last. I was fortunate that my relationship did. Now my wife and I, we've been married for 22 years. Welcome back to Unchained, Hope and Healing from Addiction. In this series, we're going to look at ways that we can break through some of the addictions and toxic ways of dealing with life. It doesn't matter if it's a big addiction or a small addiction, whatever it is, you can find a freer, better way to live life. And so that's what this series is all about. In our last session, we looked at this person, the demoniac, who was filled with demons. He was chains all over his body, and he was living in a graveyard. And we saw what God was able to do in him, and that's the good news of this series, Unchained, is God can do that in your life as well. Now, the first breakthrough that we have to have if we want to live an unchained life is we have got to break through the dishonesty and the denial. You know, we've got to recognize there's a problem if we're going to deal with the problem. We've got to be willing to recognize and identify the elephant in the room. There is a children's book called There Is No Such Thing as Dragons. And in this story, there is a boy who sees a small dragon at home one day, and he tells his mom, and his mom quickly says, well, honey, there's no such things as dragons. And at first, this dragon is small. It's manageable. But every time the mom says there's no such thing as dragons, the dragon gets bigger. It gets bigger until the dragon is bigger than their house. And it's running all through town, and it's causing all kinds of problems. And again, the mother is just kind of oblivious to this dragon. She can't see it, or maybe she's not willing to see it. Finally, the dad comes home and he asks what happened. And Billy says, well, it was the dragon. And mother begins to say, but there's no such thing as, and then Billy interrupts. There is a dragon, Mom. There is a very big dragon. And as they start acknowledging the dragon and its reality, the dragon starts to shrink. And it gets smaller, and it gets smaller, and it gets smaller until at the very end it's back to being about the size of a cat. At the end, the mom asks, well, why did the dragon have to get so big? And Billy says, I think it just wanted to be noticed. Problems, addictions, dysfunctions, they don't get better by ignoring them. Man, they only get worse. You see, it's only after admitting the problem that we can actually address the problem. The problem is as the pastor Timothy Keller puts, our lives run on denial like cars run on gasoline. You see, we just are constantly filled with denial about everything. Everyone is. It's always easier to see someone else's problem than to deal with our own problem. It's always easier to see someone else's insanity than our own insanity. But this is the thing. An upper-class, pill-popping, doctor-hopping addict is no less insane than the homeless person shooting up dope under the bridge. In fact, I would suggest the person under the bridge is less insane because at least they know that they've got a problem. We've got to get honest. A lot of people watching and a lot of people in the world, maybe you haven't gotten honest with the reality that you have a problem, that there's something in your life that is holding you back. In John's gospel, we have two people who've got to get honest if they're going to get any better. And what I love about this story is these are two totally different people. All right, in John 3, we have our first character. It says there was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews. This man came to Jesus by night. And then in John 4, the next chapter, we have our second character. It was about the 6th hour, a woman of Samaria came to draw water. And so Nicodemus goes to Jesus at night. The Samaritan woman goes to the well when no one is supposed to be there. Man, it is amazing the things we try to do to hide from each other. You see, Nicodemus and the Samaritan woman are as different from each other as you can get, or so it seems. One's a Jew, one's a Samaritan, and they didn't like each other. One's a male, one's a female. One is very famous, he's a ruler of the synagogue, and the other one, the Bible doesn't even record her name. And yet I find it really cool that for both these people and their problems, the solution is exactly the same. John 3:5, Jesus tells Nicodemus, "Truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born of water and the Spirit, he cannot enter into the kingdom of God." And then to the woman at the well, Jesus says, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him and he would have given you living water." Man, God wants to give you something that really works. Because often the wells we go to in life doesn't work. Or it doesn't work for long. You know, the drugs work for a little bit, but it doesn't last. You know, popularity works for a little while, but I promise before long you're going to be thirsty again. The pats on the back work for a little while, they feel good, but you're going to be thirsty again. Look, the drugs work at first, but you're going to get thirsty again. Religion without a relationship, right? Just living a religious life, that works for a little while. But you never quite feel good enough or like you've done quite enough. You're going to be thirsty again. So check this out. Nicodemus goes to Jesus in the middle of the night, right? Why? Well, because he's got a reputation. He's hiding. The Samaritan woman goes to the well at noontime, which was the hottest time of the day, and no one went to the well at that time because, you see, she's also hiding. And interestingly, she's not hiding to keep her reputation. She's hiding because of her reputation. But you know what I love about this story? Is Jesus is already waiting for her at the well. Before she shows up, Jesus is already there. You need to know that God has a solution for you before you even realize it. Before you had a problem, God had a solution. He's already there. Jesus is already with you right now. You may not always feel it, but he's with you. When Jesus asks the Samaritan woman for a drink, it's important to know that when God asks a question, you know, he has all the cards, right? So he's not asking the question for information. When God asks a question, they're always rhetorical, okay? When Jesus asks the question, he's trying to drive home a spiritual point. He doesn't really want a drink. Jesus asks for a drink in order to give the woman a drink. Jesus, whenever he asks for something from us, it's always so he can give us something better. So if he asks for you to surrender the toxic relationship, it's so that he can give you a healthy, better relationship. I know you think that you don't deserve better, but you do. If he asks you to surrender your old life, it's so he can give you a new life. If he asks you for your chains, it's so that he can give you his freedom. Now, when you study this phrase, living water, that was used by people in this time and place for what we would call running water. All right? So living water was basically running water. It was fresh water that came from a stream and not from a well. So living water was believed to come directly from God. It was believed to be supernatural. Friends, only God can give you the water that really satisfies. And so the Samaritan woman asks him, how is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria? And the woman said to him, Sir, I perceive that you are a prophet. Our fathers worshiped on this mountain. You see, she's trying to change the subject. She's dancing around the issue. She doesn't really want to get honest about what's going on in her life. And really, when you look at Nicodemus, he does the exact same thing. Rabbi, we know that you are a teacher come from God, for no one can do these signs that you do unless God is with him. And then he says in John 3:4, how can someone be born when they are old? The Samaritan woman says, you don't have a rope or a bucket to draw up any water. They keep throwing up objections to Jesus instead of really answering his question, really dealing with the issue. The woman says, I don't have a bucket, and this well is very deep. The well isn't deep. Her denial and dishonesty is deep. You see, neither Nicodemus or the Samaritan woman are wanting to be totally honest with Jesus. They're not really wanting to get real with him. But friends, honesty is the place where victory begins. In recovery, if you say something in meetings, and this is something that I had to get used to at first, but addiction has a way of bringing you to your knees. And I remember the first time I went to a meeting, and whenever someone speaks or says something, they always preface it with, my name is so-and-so and I am an addict. My name is so-and-so and I am an addict. And this is to do something extremely important, and that is to get honest about the reality that I'm an addict. You know, to tell on my addiction. Freedom comes when we get honest. My name is Richie. I'm an addict. I've got a problem. It's freeing. It's liberating. That's where the solution can begin. Right now, each one of us needs to get real. And maybe you're not an addict, but you need to say, hey, my name is so-and-so, and I'm messed up. Man, I have a spending problem. I've got a judgmental problem. I've got a control problem. I've got an anger problem. I need help. And the moment we can admit our problem, man, healing starts happening. And so Jesus is dealing with this with Nicodemus and this woman at the well. Jesus says in John 4:14, the water that I will give them will become in them a spring of living water welling up for eternal life. You haven't experienced life until you've experienced my life. And notice when Jesus says that, the woman says, Sir, give me this water that I may not thirst nor come here to draw. She wants living water now. But of course, Jesus really isn't talking about water. And so what does he do? He brings her to that point, and now it's up to her. She's got to be willing to get honest. You want living water? Then you've got to get real about where you have been going to for fulfillment. You have to get honest that what you've been going to hasn't been working. You've got to be real that what you've been doing doesn't work. John 4:16, go call your husband and come here. You see, Jesus is getting to the core of the problem. She's trying to skirt around the issue. Jesus brings her back. And so she says to him, when he says, bring your husband here, says, I don't have a husband, the woman replied. So now she's only being partially honest. Friends, partial honesty will not unchain you. It doesn't work. You got to be totally honest, completely honest. And so Jesus says, you're right, you don't have a husband. You've got 5 husbands, and you aren't even married to the man that you're living with now. You spoke the truth. The truth is out. The problem has been identified. She's been going to the wrong thing for satisfaction and fulfillment. But now she tastes the living water of Jesus Christ. Now that she's gotten honest, she's feeling liberated from her problem and her shame and her pain. And that's why in John 4:28, it says that the woman left her water jar. You see, she left her water jar behind because she realizes that that water cannot fulfill her anymore. She leaves her water jar behind because she realizes that she doesn't need that water anymore. It doesn't work. Only the living water works. And so it's not an accident that these two stories are right next to each other in John's gospel. So you have Nicodemus, a ruler of the Jews, and he comes to Jesus by night. And you have a Samaritan woman who came to draw water at noontime. Jesus waits for the church leader to come to him, but for the nameless prostitute who's hooked up with 5 different guys, Jesus goes all the way to Samaria to find them. So Jesus has to wait for some of us to come to him because you see, we think we know everything, right? Nicodemus thinks he knows everything. And so Jesus allows Nicodemus to come to him. But for others of us who are so broken, so lost, Jesus goes all the way to where we are to find us. To Nicodemus, Jesus says, look, all the morality, all the religion, all your works. The Pharisees were these groups of people, man. They had the Bible memorized. They counted their steps. They were extremely religious. And yet Jesus says, you got to be born again. All the morality and religion in the world cannot save you, Nicodemus. To the Samaritan woman, Jesus says, the wells that you've been going to will not fulfill you. Their situations seem different, but check it out. The solution is the same. To Nicodemus, someone who thinks he knows everything, Jesus says, you need to be born again. So that truth is humbling. Nicodemus, you got to get over yourself. But to the woman who already thinks she's nothing, Jesus says, look, for you I have living water. It's empowering. She doesn't need to be humbled. You see, life already humbled her. She needs to be lifted up. The gospel, that's what the gospel does. It humbles, it's got to humble some of us, and it empowers others of us. To those who don't think they know anything, Jesus says, I have living water. And to those that think they know everything, he says, look, Nicodemus, sit down, shut up. You need to be born again. Both Nicodemus and the Samaritan woman were hiding. One to keep his good reputation, the other because of her bad reputation. One life was filled with accomplishments, the other life was filled with mistakes. And yet Jesus doesn't really care where you came from. What Jesus wants to know, not where you came from, but where are you going? Both Nicodemus and the Samaritan woman were on roads leading to dead ends. One was looking for purpose and fulfillment in their good works. The other was looking for purpose and fulfillment in their good looks. Both were chained by what people thought. Both were chained by the way they were raised. Both were chained to dysfunctional approaches to life. They seem to be two polar opposites, but their problem is the same. And so we have a male and we have a female. We have a named and we have the unnamed. We have the educated and we have the uneducated. We have the churched and we have the unchurched. We have a Jew and we have a Samaritan. Jesus seeks one out, the other one seeks Jesus out. One has the Bible memorized, the other has had 5 different husbands. But Jesus offers them both the same thing, living water. Friends, Jesus brought all of us here today. Jesus is speaking to all of us here today. Different people with different problems, different pasts, different pay scales. The Nicodemuses are watching. The Samaritans are watching. The cheaters are watching. The Pharisees are watching. The religious, the worldly, the Democrats, Republicans, smart people, not so smart people. And yet we all need the same thing. Our solution is all ultimately the same thing, and that's living water. You know what I love about Jesus is he meets us wherever we are. Jesus meets the woman at the well at Samaria in the middle of the day, and he also meets Nicodemus in the middle of the night. You see, God has to meet you where you are because he can't meet you where you are not. And so you got to get honest. Stop pretending and start admitting. You know, we've got to admit that we don't have all the answers. We have to admit that, you know what, maybe the way I was raised was a little dysfunctional. We have to admit that, you know what, the way the secular world thinks about this issue, maybe that's not right. We have to admit that we have a problem. We have to admit that we don't have all the answers, that we don't have everything together. We have to admit that we don't just need a few things fixed. We need everything fixed. That I don't just have a problem or a few problems, but that, man, sometimes my greatest problem isn't my predicament or my situation, it's my thinking. And when you start getting honest, man, your chains start losing their power and they start breaking. In John 8:32, Jesus said, the truth will set you free. So check this out. Freedom cannot happen without truth and honesty. They are inextricably linked. The next time we see Nicodemus, it's in the day, out in the open, publicly asking Pilate for the body of Jesus. You see, friends, that's what the living water will do to you. And so someone who met Jesus originally in the middle of the night now goes in the middle of the day and doesn't care who sees him. And he goes and he asks for the body of Jesus so that he can bury him. The next time we see the Samaritan woman, she's looking for the same people that she used to avoid. That's why she was going to the well in the middle of the day. They're no longer controlled by what people think. They're no longer chained by their problem. They're no longer hiding in their works or hiding in their addictions or in their habits or in their hurt. They're two totally different people, but they're joined by the exact same need. Both were empty, needing to be filled. Both were dirty, felt dirty, and they needed to be washed. And Jesus comes along and offers them both water. Friends, the moment I started admitting I was powerless over my addiction and that my life was unmanageable was when my chains started breaking. That's where the journey has to begin. The truth can set you free right now, but you've got to get honest. You got to get real about what you're going through. What do you have to get honest about right now? You can drop your bucket and you can drop the act and you can receive Jesus' living water today and feel the liberation and freedom. Jesus already knows exactly where you are. Get honest with him. He already knows the truth about you. And so you can get honest with yourself and experience that chain of denial and dishonesty break free.
Man, what a blessing. Thank you, Richie, for such a powerful message, such a powerful story. Thank you for the first breakthrough that you gave to us, that we could be unchained and living our best life. If you were blessed by that message, by that story, write the word blessed in the comment below and let us know. But now we are coming to the time of our book giveaway. Our book giveaway. And our winner tonight is Pam Fitz. So Pam, you are the winner tonight. Everyone in the comment section, right, congratulations, Pam. We'll get you information and we will send this book to you. Remember, to win the book, you have to register. We want everyone to register. And you do that by commenting or texting the word Unchained to the number on your screen. And remember, we will not give you information out. The only thing you'll receive from us is a text reminder about the presentation, about the series happening at 7:30, and also what the topic is going to be. Friends, what a blessing tonight. I've been blessed, and I know that you have too. So don't forget, we're going to be here tomorrow night at 7:30 with our second breakthrough from our presenter, Richie Halverson. So friends, have a wonderful night. Have a great night. We'll see you right here tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. Be blessed.